down like rain. Make the waters rise again. Who's to say where river ends and I begin? Running through my veins, washing all over my skin. Who's to say where river ends and I begin? Where ends and I begin. I'm one with the one I'm in. I'm one with the one I'm in. And there's a river and it runs right through it all. There's a river and it runs right through it all. There's a river and it runs right through it all. There's a river and it runs down, right down through it. Thank you so much. Gosh, what a great warm room to be in, surrounded by paintings that look pretty watery on this now snowy morning with the cherry blossoms out there getting covered in snowflakes. It's so typical Virginia March. So I was asked to speak on this theme of water, and my friend Lindsay was the one that asked me if I'd do it, and she said, because you know you have that water song, and I was like, I had to stop and think for a second, like, wait, it's hard for me to think of a song that I've written that doesn't have water in it, actually, and that got me thinking about how essential water is to life, imagine that, and also to my creative practice, and I think probably to yours too. So I'm not any kind of expert on water at all, but I am a deep appreciator of water, and it inspires me, and I have a hunch that everyone in this room can relate. We are all human on planet Earth and comprised of over 50% water. Had to check that statistic. So I think we all have wisdom to bring to this topic, and I'm going to hopefully invite some of that sharing of wisdom in this space. I also think it's appropriate to be talking about water on International Women's Day. I'm going to pull a Maggie and say, raise your hand if you knew that today was International Women's Day. Yeah, okay, great. That's great. So in so many traditional cultures, women are the protectors of water. If you think about the waters of the womb from which we all emerge, this is a wisdom that is kept in so many traditional life ways. And I think that we all have the power to be water protectors. So hopefully that's something that will inspire us this morning. Water is the great connector. It runs through all of us, in us. It connects us. And it demands that we recognize our interdependence. So we are already all connected to and through water. And I hope that through the little bit of music and words that I'll share this morning, we can be a little more conscious of that connection. And I hope that that will then flow into your creative work of being a human on planet Earth in 2019 and whatever your other creative practices might be. So I was so happy to see these name tags that some of them asked about sparkling or still water. Sparkling. But some of them also asked about your favorite body of water. So some of you already have a little head start on what we're going to do. I forgot to advance my slides with my fancy clicker, so we're going to do this now. The song that I began with, or the sort of part of a song that I began with, was inspired by two different rivers that are some of my favorite bodies of water. The James River in Richmond. Here's another shot from Belle Isle. And the Yakima River in Washington, where I lived for a year on the dry side of Washington state. So this river is just a little trickle in the summer, and in the wintertime it flows and it fills, and it inspired the end of, actually, the piece of the song that I just sang this morning. We're going to go back slightly. So I want you to, if you didn't get a chance to write on your name tag, choose really quick. It doesn't have to be your absolute favorite. If you're like me and it's hard to make decisions, just choose the first one that comes to mind. And I'm gonna ask you to just call that body of water to mind. If it helps you to close your eyes to do that, or just soften your gaze. So call that body of water to mind. This is a place that holds memory for you and meaning. It is precious to you. So just for a moment, experience what it's like to connect with that water that is precious to you. You can feel it and hear it. Can you even taste it or smell it? Really see it. Okay, you can come back into the room, maybe keep that sense of that watery place with you. And I'm going to share two brief stories that speak of the significance of water and how water inspires action if we are wise enough and brave enough to act on behalf of water, which is acting on behalf of all of us, all of life. So the first comes from Bolivia. This is a perfect moment to use this little feature. Okay. These are llamas. This is Bolivia. So I had the privilege of living in Cochabamba, Bolivia, for a little while on two different occasions. Before I went to Bolivia, I knew very little about it. It's a country in Central South America, and it has distinct regions and cultures. And the city where I was living, of Cochabamba, is not super high up in the Los Andes mountains, but it has the foothills of Los Andes, the Andes. I was there in the rainy season, both times I lived there. These massive rain clouds would gather on these foothills. And I would see them approaching. They would sort of sit up there on the mountains, and I would be hanging out my laundry to dry, and I would be looking up at those clouds and wondering if my laundry would dry before the rainstorm hit. So I was experiencing this incredible abundance of water in this place, and at the same time I was starting to learn about some of the history of Cochabamba. And in the not too distant past, there was a time there called the Water Wars. This was at the end of 1999, the beginning of 2000. And at that time, a transnational corporation, largely made up of a corporation based in the United States, actually bought all of the water in the city of Cochabamba. And so this thing that had been a public resource became privatized. It was held by this corporation for the purpose of corporate gain. And so water became inaccessible to just people in the city. And it was so absurd, even the rainwater was considered the property of this transnational corporation. So the rainwater in Bolivia, the rainwater in Cochabamba, in these mountains belonged to a company in the United States. So I learned about that and was, enraged by it. And then I also learned about this amazing movement of resistance, this popular mass movement where tens of thousands of folks in Cochabamba gathered and marched, and they got the right to their water back. That's story number one. Story number two, fast forward to 2016. And I had the honor of getting to come alongside the water protectors at Standing Rock. So at Standing Rock, I think hopefully at this point folks know what happened there. There was an incredible gathering of over 300 different tribes and non-Indigenous allies like myself and so many others that gathered at the invitation of LaDonna Brave Bull Allard, who's a Standing Rock Sioux woman, a water protector to her bones. And the Dakota Access Pipeline was slated to, at first, just run through Bismarck, or an area near Bismarck, and that was rerouted to avoid contaminating the public drinking water in that city. And it was rerouted to an area that went through sacred indigenous lands as well as endangered the Missouri River and Lake Oahe. So in response, the Standing Rock Sioux called for folks to gather in prayer at a prayer camp, the Camp of the Sacred Stones, and then several other camps arose. I got to be at this camp here, Ocheti Sakowin, and I was just there for like 48 hours to participate in this prayer circle with people of faith from all over the world. And the body of water you see back here is the Cannonball River, which is a small tributary to the Missouri River. And what happened there was this incredible show of resilience and resistance of indigenous people who have always known the sacredness of water, who have always known the preciousness of this irreplaceable resource. And it was incredible to be a white person there, to be a descendant of settlers there, and to be invited into that place to remember my own connection to water. And one of the most important things I heard there is that Standing Rock is everywhere. So this fight here, this protest here, this ceremony here wasn't successful in stopping the Dakota Access Pipeline. The protesters, or the prayer warriors, the water protectors there were faced incredible brutality from the police and the National Guard. Water was then weaponized against them in the form of these water hoses in sub-freezing temperatures. But what I think happened nationally and globally was an awakening, especially of folks like myself who aren't indigenous, to listen to that wisdom of our interconnectedness and to join in that what is a global struggle now for the water and for the planet. So Standing Rock is everywhere. That means Standing Rock is here. This is the Rivanna River. We all live in the Rivanna River watershed, unless you came from further afield, and you live in a watershed too. So I want to invite us to think about how we relate to the water right here and to all the other water that is precious to us. And I'm going to leave you with 2 quotes from Adrienne Marie Brown. Is anyone familiar with Adrienne Marie Brown or the book Emergent Strategy? Oh, great. Okay, put this at the top of your reading list. Hang on. Adrienne Marie Brown wrote this book, Emergent Strategy. She's really inspired by Octavia Butler, who's a, what does she call herself? She's a Black science fiction writer and talks about Afrofuturism. And this book draws together sort of teachings from the natural world with wisdom from Adrienne Marie Brown's experience community organizing. So she's looking at ways of creating change in really creative ways. So everyone that thinks of themselves as creative or aspires to be creative, I recommend this book. So the first thing I want to quote from here: art is not neutral. It either upholds or disrupts the status quo, advancing or regressing it. And this is the second piece. In our best human practices, we watch the systems of the world and follow them. Permaculture. The natural world manifests life in ecosystems, not monocultures. One of my favorite ways of understanding nature creating more possibilities is to watch water move through the world. Water creates the ways for itself, moving with gravity, moving around obstacles, wearing down obstacles, reshaping the world. When there isn't an overt way forward, water seeps into the land, becomes a vapor in the sky, freezes into ice. When the time comes, water moves over the land in cloud form and nourishes elsewhere. So bring back to mind that water that you had at the beginning. See it in your mind's eye, and then I'm going to teach you just a tiny bit of a song that's going to give voice to that water. So each of us are going to be a little aqueduct. We're going to be letting that water that is near and precious to us to flow into this space and mix with all this other water, and then we're all going to float on it. We won't drown. I have noodles just in case. So the word is just ooh. So you can definitely do it. If you'd rather do like ah, you could do that too. And I wrote this song when I was first learning about those water wars in Bolivia. Okay, so you're gonna go like this. Ooh. Can you do that with me? And the second one is a little bit different, so listen first. So you're going to know when it's time to do this with me. And you're going to remember to let that ooh be the voice of the water that's precious to you, that's sacred to you, so it can come into this space and soak all of us. There's thunder up the mountainside tonight. Yeah, there's thunder on the mountainside tonight. Can you hear it go? Here it goes. Oh, Moses, well, he never saw the promised land. And Martin only saw it in his dream. But when I hear the thunder of the mountain, then I can almost hear that mighty stream. When it rains, it's gonna pour down. Our mouths are dry, we're crying out for water. Our souls are dry, we're dying for a cure. But I can hear the thunder of the mountain, and when it rains, I know it's gonna pour. We'll all hear it go. Ooh, ooh. I mean, hear it go. When it rains, it's gonna pour down. When it rains, it's gonna pour down. Ooh. Thanks so much. I went over time, I think, but there's time for questions? Okay. I think this is when you can ask me a question or two.
Claire, I'll just ask you to repeat the question.
Great. Yeah, awesome. So the question was, as a musician who travels around, how has music been a way of connecting to different places and people? I love that question. I think that's the main thing that that's the main way music functions in my life, is as a connector. And yeah, I just think of just about every song I've ever written feels really tied to a place and a landscape. And so I think places sort of lodge themselves in my body and in my memory, and then I'm able to sort of articulate them in a song. So that's one way. And then in sharing songs with people and learning other people's songs and teaching songs, that's a way in more recent years. I'm doing less sort of standing in front of people and performing and more kind of leading people in group singing. Yeah, just learning the ways that songs travel is so amazing. And I learned, this song from that person who learned it from that person, and it comes from that tradition or that place. So it's the sort of oral tradition, I think, too, that connects people and moments. I think about like movement songs, which I've been learning a lot more about and leading people in. And there's just one song I sing a lot that came from the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and then it's sort of been taken up into this, like cloud of all of the movement music of the world that's then rained down. Oh my gosh, this is a metaphor. On different areas and becomes relevant. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. What song is that? Do you want to learn it? Yeah. Okay. So it's a call and response. The words are, "Courage, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home." And this was sung to prisoners as to activists, anti-apartheid activists, as they were being taken away to go to prison, to remember the names of those people. So instead of singing "my friend," they would sing the name of that person. Courage, my friend, you do not walk alone. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home, and sing your spirit home. Yeah, thanks for singing with me, y'all. Definitely an evolving issue. I mean, I think everyone that was there was impacted by it in ways, just visitors to the place were impacted by it in ways that are continuing to play out and hopefully inspiring further action, right, in those standing rocks that are everywhere. Right here locally, we have the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and the Mountain Valley Pipeline, so this is an issue that's live everywhere. But most especially for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, that's their daily reality now, is that pipeline is there. And I think, and that is, one example of the infinite examples of ways that Indigenous people of this country are continuing to be victimized by the same, colonial system that was set up so long ago, where white folks come in and extract something and benefit from it, and Indigenous folks are left with paying for that with their health and loss of culture and connection to place. So in those ways, it's still very alive. Yeah. I forgot to repeat these questions, but I'm remembering now. What is my songwriting process like? Oh my gosh. I guess it's happened in different ways. It still feels mysterious to me, and sometimes it's even hard for me to think of myself as a songwriter because I'm not that prolific. But what tends to happen is that some words just sort of get in my head and sort of arrange themselves in a way. Like I'll hear something or read something or think about something that assembles some words in my head, and then that's just sort of starts to snowball or like gather some more meaning to it or language around it, and then the music part comes second. I found for me, and that's probably because I'm not much of an instrumentalist. But when I like sit down with my instrument, then those words that have been sort of floating around start to attach to a melody. Thanks. I'd be curious to hear from the other songwriters in the room about their process. But I can talk to you like over coffee later. Yeah. Are you based here now, and what are you doing? What's your current? Yeah. So the question is, am I based here now, and what am I doing? I ask myself that so frequently. And I was so impressed that you memorized my bio, and I don't even quite know what it means. I think it was like an aspirational sort of bio. What I do is a mix of things. My paid work is with a national nonprofit with local chapters, and so I work remotely doing faith and justice stuff. And that is mainly organizing young, progressive-minded Catholics around issues of LGBTQ rights, women's ordination, which is not allowed in the Catholic Church, and racial justice in the Catholic Church. And I also live with a community on 8 acres of land that we're trying to steward well. And we do a lot of racial justice work locally as well. Right now, our big focus is on supporting a group of trans women that came to the United States seeking asylum and are still in that very long process. They were part of one of the earlier caravans. And I do some nannying. I get to hang out with babies. I think that's, yeah. I like to dance, too. I was wondering, actually, when I heard that this was going to be at Ix, I was like picturing it in the place where there's Latin dance at Ix, if you ever go there Wednesdays or Sundays. I was like, that would be an interesting thing to like give this talk where I'm used to salsaing. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
For folks who might be interested in learning more about water protection here,
Yeah.
you recommend some resources or ways they can get involved?
Yeah. Gosh, I know there's a local coalition. Is anyone in here involved in pipeline resistance work of any kind? Is there a way to email out to attendees of this event? Okay, cool. Then I'll send along some resources to y'all, some links to connect with. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. Yes. Totally. Yeah. Questions for advice for just daily life, how to be a better water advocate. And what's your name? Eric mentioned also this, folks are saying now that in the coming decades there will be more wars fought over water than over oil. Gosh, yeah. I mean, I think what we can all do is shift our consciousness so that we remember that where we live is a watershed. That feels like a really important shift, and that move from water as a sort of like raw material or something that we can manipulate into more of like an indigenous worldview of water as relative, water as this great connector. I think that like on a daily basis, we engage with water all the time, and I found that preparing for this talk that every time I was engaging with water, I was like conscious of it. So I think we can become more capable of that, and hopefully that will inform when there are opportunities to take action, that we can do that.
Awesome. We are at time. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you all.